And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition, Meet the Candidates. As we mentioned before, we are bringing to you the candidates that are running for different political offices across the states. And in partnership with Serbian Radio Chicago, Serbian-American Voters Alliance is looking to scoop the best candidates that are out there for different political positions so that you can get to know them, get to know their platforms, and make your final decisions. And I am very pleased today to bring to you a candidate for governor of Illinois. Now, Illinois being one of the states where Serbian Americans live in, Chicago would be the second capital of the Serbs outside of their capital, Belgrade, back in Serbia. So according to everything that we know, there are about 350,000 Serbian Americans who live in that great Chicagoland area. So we are so pleased to have Christopher Roper with us today. He was the first one to announce that he is running for governor of Illinois. Now the field has expanded since, but we are happy to have him on today. So welcome, Christopher, and thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, so tell us a little bit about yourself. You are a veteran, you are a disabled veteran. So thank you, sir, for your service. Tell us a little bit about that background and how did it come about that you decided to run for governor of Illinois?
Well, my whole life I've been taught to, to help everyone, no matter what. The sacrifices that we make for each other is huge. And that was instilled into me in a very young age. And, most of my family is or have been in the military. Two grandfathers fought in the Vietnam War, and brothers and cousins, and we're just a very military family. And I got to that age, and I felt like, I need to serve my country. I need to give something back. I want to help. So I signed that dotted line. I was 19 kilo, which is Abrams tank. Really fun. Very nice piece of machinery. But the military taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about how to just be a great person for everyone, not just a certain side or yourself. A very selfless service. And I hold dear to all those values that I was taught in the military to this day. When I got out, I became a police officer, and we're taught to, help everyone. Doesn't matter what side of the spectrum they may fall. Every walk of life it's valuable. They're valuable, and they mean something. So, I kept that on, but my injuries it's probably not a good idea to continue being law enforcement. So, I changed gears, and I just was, all about family and helping everybody anywhere I can. And then just seeing kind of the temperature of America change here recently, and it's kind of scary. And I have 6 kids and a wonderful wife, and a lot of family, and I consider Illinois my family. Illinois is my Illinois family. I love everybody. So I just got to seeing that and how it was affecting everybody with these lockdowns, and that should never have happened. But be safe. But we need our economy. Our economy is huge. Small businesses. But I saw all that happening, and I just felt like something was telling me, you need to help. So, I slept on it, prayed about it, and here I am. I want to help everybody. And it doesn't matter where you stand in the political field. It doesn't matter where who you are, what you are, just everybody. We're all people. We the people, and we all want life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's what I'm all about, and what I fight for.
Absolutely. Now, I have to bring this up, and we had a conversation about it. You just recently lost your father, and of course, we're extending our condolences to you. But your father was a very big part of who you are, of course, your family, and what your campaign is about right now. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, my dad was a heck of a guy. He was very, I talked about selfless service. He would give you the shirt off his back, even if it was the only shirt he had. And he taught me that very, very young. And it just was, it was part of life. It's just, you help others. It's just what we do as a people, as the human race. If you see somebody in need, help. And he was very big on that. And he always taught me to, everybody's going to have opinion. And just because you don't agree with that opinion doesn't mean you disrespect them. You always respect people, period, because their opinion means just as much to them as your opinions mean to you. And I've always kind of lived that life. I want to make sure that everybody is heard, everybody is respected. And, again, we're not all going to agree, but we definitely need to respect each other. And then, I've kind of learned, I'm almost 45 years old. I'm turning 45 in July. And he taught me that you just throw all those opinions into a bucket, you stir it up, and you try to come up with the best possible outcome of all of those combined. And it's a really simple process, but it's also very complicated when you look at it. But and we need to quit fighting with each other and just respect each other and try to come up with something that will work across the board. And
Sure, and let's jump then to the issues. Illinois is facing certainly a good share of them, and let's go straight to COVID. How do you think Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has handled this situation? You are running against him. How do you think COVID has affected Illinois? Unlike, let's say, I'm sitting here in Florida, we have two different governors, two different states, and quite different outcomes. So what are your views just in this past year? How has Illinois handled the COVID crisis?
Well, first, I want to say Ron DeSantis is a heck of a governor. He does an amazing job. You guys are very, very blessed to have such a great governor who wants everybody to be, basically where I stand.
Thank you.
I just want to give him kudos. And so Pritzker was faced with a very big thing. It's a big thing. COVID is a big thing. It can affect people differently. It certainly can, not be so well on other people, and they don't have very good outcomes, which, and we need to be safe. And that if I were the governor at the time, I would definitely have taken the moment, like, the President Trump said, let's see what's going on, assess it. But we definitely should never have locked down. We should never have closed down our businesses. We should have kept everything going. Florida is leading the way, showing that, you don't have to live in fear. You don't have to ruin your economy to be safe. There are means to be safe. And, when it comes to masks, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask if it makes you feel better. If you don't want to wear one, don't. It's not I'm not going to get into that. So it's your choice. Same with the vaccinations. We definitely should have went and give the vaccination to those who want it, to the ones that are most vulnerable, which is our elders. It proved very quickly that the elderly were most affected by COVID. It hasn't been really handled that way in Illinois. That's unfortunate. I definitely would have made sure that we put our seniors first. They are the most vulnerable. And then, you just do triage, just like they do in hospitals. You take the worst cases first, and then you just kind of triage them down. So, that's kind of how I would do it. And like right now, we're faced with Illinois. We've lost so many small businesses. Those people have worked their lives, spent everything they had trying to keep or make their business. And then they were told they're not essential. They have to close down. But then you have the big box stores that they were allowed to stay open, but they said they had, they could only have so many people, et cetera, and so on. Well, I tested that theory, and there was hundreds of cars still in the parking lots, hundreds of people still inside. So it was really, to me, it made no sense. And now we're faced with, Illinois is not doing well. Our budget is crap. And it's not doing well. And it's not our fault. It's not we the people's fault. It's the mismanagement and the horrible leadership that we've had to deal with for decades. Each governor has been handing, down a problem one to the next governor, and it just keeps going. I have not. I'm born and raised in Illinois, so I've seen it since I was a kid till now. And that's just what's happening. Nobody's just taking the bull by the horns and fixing it. Nobody's fighting corruption like it needs to be fought. There's a big mess in Illinois, and it's not our fault. So we shouldn't have to deal with and suffer and be suffocated, is what I like to say, by bad leadership.
Well, you mentioned you have children, and COVID was a big part in the situation that we are facing now with education. And education is something that is big on your platform. You advocate for. How is this situation currently in Illinois, and what are you proposing to change in terms of the unions and how our children essentially are being mismanaged depending on the state, of course, in terms of the education that they are receiving, and especially with everybody going virtual this past year. How is Illinois dealing with that, and what are the proposals that you are putting forth to change some of that?
Well, this lockdown, it affected our school-aged children tremendously. They need to be in school. They need to interact with their peers. That's just how it's part of growing up. They also need their education, you know, and so we get that. We understand that we have to make sure we're staying safe. So use precautions, you know, but we need to be in school face to face. They need to be with their friends, and sports. They definitely need to sports. We have many probably rising stars in our young people here in Illinois that missed out on a year of sports. You know, that's just that aspect. Then you have the academics. You know, it's okay, I guess, once in a while to do a virtual classroom, but you can't do that all the time. You can't learn. It's not the same atmosphere. It's not the same teaching styles that a student needs. And they've really, unfortunately, have missed out on that as well. And it's causing a lot of issues in our young school-age children. You know, they're having their depression, anxiety. We've had suicides. It's phenomenal, and in not a good way that we're facing and forcing on our children. We need to open the schools back up, and then with the possible strikes and stuff going on, we need to get to school. Kids need to get to school. Put your differences aside, make something work, but get in the classroom and teach our students. Teach them, you know, math, English, all those. And as far as the new bill that was passed, you know, that's called indoctrination. You can't force children to learn things. That's a parent's job. And I talk about this a lot. And this is part of my plans you know, we need to have our teachers back to being teachers, not everything that we've kind of allowed them to. And it's unfortunate because the way our economy has been, you know, both parents have to work. So the students are going to school, and that's all they're getting. They're the teacher and then a babysitter or on their own. You know, because of the way the economy is, that both parents have to work. So now we need to start taking that, because we've been giving that power to the teachers, which they became mom, they became dad, they became therapists and counselors and all that. But that's not their job. Is to teach, not, you know, school, not life lessons. So we need to, as parents, need to take that power back to where it belongs to us and be able to teach our kids life values. And, you know, that's the parents' job, not the school's job, and definitely not the government's job.
Now, specifically, what is the bill that you are addressing in this case that was passed? And I'm following Illinois, but just for our viewers and listeners, what is it that you're specifically referring to?
This is the education bill. I don't remember the number. There's so many that I'm following right now. There's a lot of numbers. It is the education bill, and I could probably get that to you here shortly. I do apologize for that.
Sure.
But there's so many of those bills.
Just generally, what is it addressing?
It's trying to, I've heard many different slangs for it, but it's the new education, where they call it quote unquote woke education.
I see.
Where they're trying to teach the different values, and which is fine, but, you know, leave that job to the parents. To me, that's where I think we need it to lay. So
it's part of some of those social emotional type
yes.
lessons that are understood. Now let's switch gears a little bit here. You do come back from law enforcement background. You come from military background. Illinois has certainly dealt with its fair share of issues. We saw what's happening over the summer, what's been happening around our big cities. Chicago was kind of the center at some point of this, with the cities burning, the cities being looted, the city being destroyed. How would you handle that? There were a lot of calls to defund the police. Now we know what the mayor of Chicago was doing. We know how the governor was handling it. What is your view? And especially, I know that in your campaign, you are advocating taking back that power from the city of Chicago, and especially the governor's place, putting that power back into Springfield. So if you don't mind, address some of that, the law enforcement issues, the issues, and certainly that Chicago has been dealing with for many, many years, which is the shootings that are happening, and nobody seems to care about what is going on the southwest side of Chicago. that doesn't fall under the spectrum of the narrative that we often hear in our mainstream media. So talk a little bit about that, about your law enforcement background and how you see all of this unraveling and why Chicago is such a hot mess when it comes to situations like this.
Well, I mean, I'm all for law and order. I think we all need to follow laws. That's what keeps everybody safe. That's what keeps, normal. Not normal as in, it's a touchy word to say normal, but it just means we can go outside, we can go to the grocery store or whatever without fear of being attacked, shot,
And feeling safe overall.
Safe, exactly. So what happened over this past year? There were voices. Okay, I understand that, and I heard those voices, but the violence, I cannot condone that, period. There's ways to do things and ways not to do things, and I was taught, don't use violence when you're trying to get your point across. Be louder, and we're all faced with that. And I kind of want to just veer slightly off of this and just kind of bring up what I look into if anybody tries to put a bill forward or whatever, you need to look at it from both sides, because it may feel good for a certain side to have this law or this bill passed or whatever. But you got to think, what happens if it's reversed? So everything can go both ways. And then we're doing that a lot lately, and it's starting to divide us. There's a lot of division in Illinois, and I kind of blame I pretty much blame the current administration, where they're not upholding laws. They're kind of changing things as it goes, so it just really supports criminals, and we can't have that. And I don't want to sound like I'm this tyrant where we have to have police all over. But we do need police. I support our police 100%. They have one hell of a job to take care of. They have many hats to wear, and we need to continue to let them get trained so they know how to handle the situations that they are basically forced into, because they run towards problems, we run away. So they are some brave individuals, and so we need to keep that funding for our police, so that way they can get the proper tools that they need to help keep our community safe. In Chicago, and especially the Southwest side you talked about, there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of voices that are trying to be heard, and who's listening? I'm listening. It doesn't seem like the current administration is listening, or even their mayor is listening, because they're yelling, nobody's hearing, and then now it's turning to violence. If they would just give them respect and listen to what they're screaming for, what they need, maybe we could make some forward progress and help our communities be safe and let them grow up and be something to be proud of. Everybody that lives in any spot in this state, they're proud of their area. There's some area, pieces of their area they may not like. And that's when the communities can come together and make their voices be loud, so that way they can be heard, and maybe the government or whoever is involved can hear that and take care of that. So I had been reading, I don't know a whole lot about this, but I believe it's in the southern part of Chicago. They only have one helicopter and for the police departments, and that's not enough. There's so much ground to cover there, and we need to keep our community safe. And a helicopter, it seems like a simple thing, but if you can have an eye in the sky that can really see if there's a gunman at large, a helicopter is a great tool to use. So there's a lot of things that we can do to help make our community safer, and we certainly need that big. We need that a lot. There's so much violence and stuff that's happening that people are forced into, and especially our bigger cities. And it makes me cry almost. It's a sad thing. People are working their butts off and trying to make something of their lives, because this is America. This is the land of opportunity. But if you can't go outside without fear of being mugged or shot, then that's a problem. So definitely defunding the police is not the way to go. We need to actually get more programs for them to be more knowledged in areas. That way they can do their job better. And then another point on that, community, there's an old term, I can't remember the exact term right now, but it's basically where an officer goes out and they just get to know their community.
That community outreach.
Yes, there you go. And they become friends with everybody. They know everybody. And to me, that worked very well. That was a very good tool to use as an officer to get to know your people and know how they are and know what they need. And then you could hear their voice. Then you could transfer what they're saying up the chain. So a lot more progress can be made that way. So we definitely need to keep our police funded for sure. That'll help us all.
And that connection that we just brought up between Springfield and having that base in Springfield versus Chicago being the center and controlling it all, how do you even separate the two, the mayor's office and the governor's office, because it seems like they're running hand in hand and they are being controlled out of Chicago, granted Chicago being the largest city in Illinois and that Cook County, of course, but there is the rest of the state and it seems like it's being left behind. So how do you even propose separating the two?
Well, I mean, I look at it like kids. You can't pick favorites. And every single city, municipality, town, village, et cetera, and so on in Illinois is part of Illinois. You can't pick favorites. You can't say, well, Chicago's the biggest city, so that's my favorite. No, we need to cut that hotline from Illinois, or I'm sorry, from Chicago to the governor's office. We need to bring the office of the governor and all of our state business back to Springfield where it belongs. And we need to give every city, town, state equal opportunity, not just Chicago. Chicago is a great city. A lot of people say, well, we should secede from Chicago. No, that's our family. Keep our Chicago. That's us. That's Illinois. But we need to make sure that we get that corruption cleaned up. We need to get that favoritism taken out, and we need to treat everybody equally. Every city, every town, every person, every man, every woman, every child. Just we all need to be treated fairly and equally. And you can't do that if you're picking favorites, picking a favorite city, and that's just how they control everything. The rest of the state has been forgotten. Chicago,
Sure.
it just seems like Chicago is that's the favorite, and that's just, they don't care about any downstate. They don't care about downstate. They don't care about the little villages. And we all make up Illinois. You can't hide that fact. But yes, Chicago is a very, very beautiful city, and it's has many people, great people, and we all need to work together.
Sure. And I've lived in Chicago for 25 years. Certainly Serbian Radio Chicago is based there. And as I said, Serbian Americans have been part of that fabric of Chicagoland for many, many decades. Actually, I would even say a couple of 100 years. So you certainly, as somebody who is running for governor, you will be on their radar just as any other candidate that is there, given that it is such a stronghold for Serbian Americans. And actually one of the former governors comes from the Serbian American community, former Governor Rod Blagojevic. His story. And I want to, by mentioning his name, I'd like to gear into something that I believe is important for us to discuss, and that is the election integrity and voter integrity. So you are running, but so I am curious, how confident are you, given what we've experienced just recently with this past election, and knowing that Chicago essentially and Illinois seemingly being a cesspool of some of this, that even former Governor Blagojevic was talking about, that there's been fraud consistently for many, many decades. This is not new. He came out and said it. So how confident are you that even people believe now that their vote counts? Will they come out and vote, given the experience that we've just had in 2020?
Well, certainly there has been a lot of evidence for decades and decades of voter fraud. It is a big problem, and it's something that we definitely need to look into. And one of the things that I had mentioned before is we need to have voter ID. We need to have paper ballots. We need to have complete and utter chain of command with every single ballot. That way it is being watched from point A to point B till it's done, and hand counting. I think that's almost a must. There is a lot of room for error when you use machinery and computers and things like that to count votes. And it is a very disheartening thing when you think of America and then we're having issues with our voting system. Something ain't right.
Sure.
So yes, and fraud does happen. And that's what I stand totally against, which is corruption and fraud and criminal activities. We need to clean up our voting systems. There are there's a few ideas floating out and about, and I'm checking into some of those. And there's actually one recently that I am really liking. So I'm going to do a little bit more researching on it, and you might be hearing me talking about it very soon.
Okay.
But I want to encourage everybody. Your vote does count, believe it or not. It does count. If everybody says, "Oh, my vote don't count," what's the use? I'm not going to vote. And I've heard that a lot, and it's almost brings tears to your eyes, because this is America, darn it. We earn that privilege as soon as we're born or as soon as we become citizens to vote. And we need to do that. That's our right. So don't give up. Always hold that line and vote, no matter what. We can make things happen that are clean, clear, transparent, proper, and legal. But we have to vote. If we stop voting, then we're defeating ourselves. So don't give up. We're Americans. Let's not give up ever.
So I'd like to connect a couple of things here. And you mentioned when it comes to voting, we need to have an ID. Now, what is being now, it's floating around that we should have a COVID vaccination ID. But somehow when we talk about having an ID to vote, that seems to be the rhetoric, at least, that is coming out, seems to be that voting and presenting your ID is racist. However, having to have a COVID vaccination passport seems to be okay. So do you see some sort of hypocrisy in some of these issues? And from what I understand, the way you're speaking, you seem to be in favor of individual liberty, whether somebody wants to get vaccinated, whether somebody wants to wear a mask, it should be an individual choice. So as somebody who seems to be a proponent of that individual liberty and freedom that our Constitution stands for, are you in fact in favor at all of mandates, including this vaccination passport, versus how would that differ from people saying, well, having to present your ID, which we have to present for so many different things, but somehow we don't have to present it to vote?
Yeah, I'll start on the vaccination passport. I think that's it's unconstitutional, in my opinion.
Okay.
You can't have, okay, this vaccine is still an emergency type thing. It has not been proven. So there are a lot of people that are afraid. Now, if you're going to force people to getting a vaccination passport is it's forcing people to get one. If you want to do this, then you have to have this passport. If you want to, no, it's still in the emergency state or status. And it's not proven itself. And I feel for the people they're just afraid. They don't want to take that yet because they don't know what it's going to do. And I feel for them. And I also feel for the people that say, hey, I trust it and I want to get it. And that's why I stand on, if you want to get the vaccine, you get it. If you don't want to get it, that's fine. If you just want to wait a little while, that's your choice too, because we're all free. We have vaccines that, I've been vaccinated, with, the polio and all that stuff, and they've proven themselves. There are some risks, but they've proven themselves and they've proven they work. This one hasn't proven itself yet. So I would never force this on anybody. I wouldn't force anything on anybody, period. But, especially this, then we go to the voting ID. Okay. So voting, you can't even get a telephone or a cell phone in your name without an ID. You can't hardly get a newspaper subscription without some sort of ID. So the biggest thing in our whole country, which is voting, you need an ID. If you need help getting an ID, there are so many people out there that are willing to help people get IDs. That way you can vote. We want votes. I don't care who you vote for. That's your business. That's your right. Flex your freedom. But you need to vote. That's your American right. So, I don't see a problem with that. And I certainly don't see how that's racist if you have to have an ID to vote. You have to have an ID for many, 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 many things. And now you can tie the two together. The vaccination passport and voter ID for voting. How is that any different? And you hit the nail right on the head. That's hypocrisy. I can't talk right now. I'm sorry, but it does just counteracts itself.
Sure.
You can't have that. If it's going to be fair for one, then it has to be fair for all. And if it's going to be against, then it has to be against. So, but here's what I think. I think we need to have voter ID. We need to not have this forced vaccination and forced masking. We need to open up. Many other states are doing it, and they're doing fine. As a matter of fact, I was doing some research earlier on, about a month ago, maybe even a little bit longer. Florida and New York are similar in size. Cuomo, and then you have DeSantis.
Sure.
There's less death, less infections and everything in Florida, and they've been open. They have their economy is not destroyed, and it's your choice. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you want a vaccine, get a vaccine. And they put their seniors first with the vaccines if they want them, because they're the most vulnerable. And then you look at New York, and their numbers are through the roof with death and and catching COVID and all that stuff. So what does that tell you? That tells you that looks like Ron DeSantis had the right idea, which is, you know what, let us be free. Let us do what we're all supposed to do, which is be free, and let us have our own thoughts and our own
Sure.
opinions on things. And, you know, and I use this a lot, and I'll throw it in here real quick. I use the tornado warnings. You know, we're taught in school, we're taught by our parents, if you hear that tornado warning, you're supposed to go get in the center room and, you know, down in the basement or whatever. But they don't have police officers coming out saying, you're not in your center room, you know, in the basement, so you're in trouble. You're fine. You know, that same thing with the masks and stuff. It's your choice. Whatever you feel like is safe, then do it. We're all adults.
Certainly. And finally, I'd like to ask, we are, of course, looking at a different spectrum of candidates who have recently announced that they are running for governor. You were the first one to announce, but since we've spoken, the field has expanded. So just give us a little brief on what you are up against and who are the other candidates that have announced and how you differ. Maybe not, you don't have to go through all of them, but at least what is it that you are doing differently or you are proposing differently from what your field is, and what is different from, in fact, the governor that Illinois has right now, Pritzker?
Well, I found out early on in politics, it turns into, if you have money, they'll talk to you. If you don't have money, they don't care. Well, I'm just like everybody else, not everybody, but I've won through the trenches, so to speak. I've worked 2 jobs trying to make sure that my family, my young family at that time, if we had food on the table, we had a house to live in. I know what it's like to not know if I can pay my rent. My opponents and the current governor, they have money. They have a lot of money.
Okay.
And so they're not used to, and they're not in touch with most of Illinois, which is, hey, we're hardworking. We live paycheck to paycheck. And then there's some that, you know, they're blessed and they don't have to do that, which is great. And I'm for all of them. But here on my campaign, you'll notice it very quick. My opponents are going to put out these gorgeous ads. These, you know, they're eye catching. They cost a lot of money. But when I look at that, I'm thinking, man, if you had all that money and you just want to spend it on yourself or self-gain, why can't you just spend it on something else, like, you know, getting some housing for our homeless veterans or things like that? So my campaign, we're not going to waste money. And that's what's happened in Illinois for I don't know how long. They're throwing money around like it's candy at a parade. And, you know, oh, there's a problem here, I'll just throw money at it, that'll fix it. No, that won't fix it. And that's where I come in, where I'm different. I'm listening. You know, I was taught in the military, a great leader has ears, meaning they'll listen. And that's what I do. And I'm not going to spend frivolously, just blow money all over the place. We don't do that. And I want to bring that into the Illinois budget because people work hard for their money and the tax revenue that they're paying, the taxes, but nobody should be throwing that around. And that's what's going to happen. I see that happening. You got people bragging that they have airplanes and, you know, cardboard cutouts and things. You know, we're not going to do that. We're not going to waste money. As a matter of fact, when my campaign's over, it's being donated to veterans DAV. So, you know, and I haven't seen that on another candidate. So just to let you know, I'm not here for bashing anyone. I don't want to do that. We've had enough of that. It's time for us to, you know, work together. But just know that I'm not going to waste money. I'm going to show that this is how you can do it. You don't have to waste money. And that's what's happened in Illinois for so many years. Our money has been wasted by leadership. And it's time for that to stop.
And that's an interesting point you bring up, because especially because of the taxation you have, and we used to, as I said, live in Chicago, but Illinois and Chicago in particular has the largest out migration in the country, and people are fleeing Illinois essentially because of all of these issues that you bring up. So finally, anything that we missed during this interview, and a message that you would like to send to the Serbian Americans who are certainly now looking at the field of candidates and trying to decide who they will cast their vote for in 2022?
Yeah, I just want to put out that, you know, I love everybody. It doesn't matter what, especially, you know, politically, I don't care if you're a Democrat or I don't care. What I care about is you're a person, and I respect you, and I love you. You're my family, Illinois family. We need to stand proud and stand strong together. And I intend on make sure we go through some programs and we fix them, because we have a lot of programs that are definitely in need of help. They're way outdated, and they're bleeding money into pockets they shouldn't be. So our money, our hard-earned money is being wasted, and that needs to stop. So that also taxes. We're taxed for everything. There's a joke around the whole country that in Illinois, you're getting taxed for the air you breathe, and we're getting close to that. That needs to stop. That is so counterproductive when it comes to bringing more people and more business. If nobody's going to come into a place with a business and say, oh yeah, I want to pay a whole bunch of taxes. No, they don't. They want to have, lower taxes so they can have a grow a bigger business and have more people, more employees. That brings jobs, that brings money. And then it trickles all the way down where, the lowest paid individual don't have to pay so much in taxes. They get to enjoy their family, enjoy what they've worked hard to make. And that's what I want to bring to Illinois. Enough's enough. We've been taking it on the chin for decades, and it's time for a governor to actually grab a hold of the problem and fix it instead of passing it down to the next governor.
Excellent. Well, Christopher, we're going to follow your campaign. Thank you for being with us today. And certainly we are going to see all the good things that are going to hopefully come out of the field of candidates that are running for governor of Illinois.
Thank you.
Thank you.